Hello, viewers. Glad to have you again today. It's a wonderful day, and it's time for expose, meaning this is not the time to show off or showcase any um, small business or startup in our community, but an opportunity to learn something new. So today we'll be focusing on law and the legalities of starting a business in Nigeria, and we'll be trying to understand the concepts, especially recent regulations that every business owner should know and should be very well aware of. And to do justice to the conversation today is a special guest and apparently a lawyer because they are the best to answer this type of questions. Um, he is Barrister Bosun Kwajo. He is a senior legal officer at the Ondo State Ministry of Justice. Of course, he has a law degree and also a postgraduate diploma in international trade and development from Uniport, and also a Master of Science in International Trade and Development from the same Uniport. So he's worked as a commercial specialist, so it's not just a government person, but he's currently with the Ondo State Ministry of Justice as a senior legal officer. He's skilled in business development, in legal research, commercial management, and international trade. But today he's going to be guiding us as to what to know, the most important elements and critical things that we ought to know in running our business in Nigeria. Mr. Olatubosun Kwajo, it's a pleasure having you here.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. Really appreciate the gesture. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you for making time to be with us. So without much ado, I'll just dive into the questions because we want to keep it as short and as brisk as possible. So in the first place, there are different structures for small businesses. Could you run us through the different business structures and then why one may be preferable to the other, and what's the best structure for someone who is starting a small business or a startup?
Okay. Thank you so much. I would also like to make sure we understand what a small business is. We have SMEs, small and medium enterprises. Last year, the Company and Allied Matters Act 2020 was gazetted sometimes in November, and which meant the law had come into place and was functioning. So one of the novel things the law did, I think Section 394, defined what a small business is. So part of the characteristics of a small business means they have annual turnover of not more than 120 million. The total net base will be around 60 million, should not be more than 60 million. And you have also just some little characteristics of a small business defined in that particular section. So by that means you get an idea of what a small business is. So you might actually think a business that is bringing in an annual turnover of 100 million per se, for example, it might be a big business, but it is not. It's been described as a small business. So, and this has been held. This has been held by both the Federal Ministry of Industry, the CBN, and the National Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. So let's just move on with that. So as regards the particular business structure that is desirable for businesses, well, I would say there are many ways to skin a cat, and the traditional proverb will say there is more than one way to enter into the market. So the business structure has different particulars. For example, you're talking of the size of a business. What is the preference size of the business? How big do you see your business? All these things affect how the business would be. You also have regulations, industry regulations that determine the size or how a business should be. You also have personal preference. So all these things go a long way into deciding what type of business you are going to set up. So we should know that a business or a business structure is a legal personality that stands on its own. It's what defines that business. It's a legal personality. It can decide to have a personality distinct from that of the owners or jointly with that of his owners. So the CAMA 2020 um, brought in new innovations too, also a new type of business structure. We have the business name, which is very popular. Prior to this, the old CAMA, that's when I say CAMA, I mean Company and Allied Matters Act for our viewers at home, so they could follow up with that. The CAMA 1990 created business names, but the popular practice then was we had sole proprietorships and partnerships, but the partnerships were not defined in the act. So what we had then were situations when people will set up a sole proprietorship, then later enter into a partnership agreement. But thankfully, the new CAMA 2020 addressed all those concerns, and a business name is just a business name that covers only a sole proprietor. So we have that structure. I would come back on some of the characteristics of that. Let me just lay down the other types of structures we have. We also have the companies, the incorporated companies. Then we have new innovation called the limited liability partnership, which is new. Then we also have the limited partnership. So depending on the preference and on the size of the business, and generally on how the owner of the business sees the direction he wants the business to go. And the good thing about this is, no matter the business structure you choose, you can decide to change your structure down the line. So a sole proprietorship is basically the easiest, the simplest, it's also the least expensive to set up. Basically has to do with just a sole proprietor in charge of all the business affairs, making all the decisions. While that is okay, but at the end of the line too, you might also be faced with taking all the losses alone. And the losses are not different from the owner of the business. The owner of the business and the business share the loss together. So those are some of the characteristics of a business name. Now you have the incorporated companies, which are quite popular. You have the limited liability and the public limited liability and the limited by guarantee. You have to register. All business structures, may I add, have to be registered with the CAC. It's compulsory, and you also have to get a tax identification number. So I also have a business address. These are some of the few things that, amidst many others, that you have to take into consideration when you're opening your business. So I was talking on companies. You have limited liability, a public limited liability company, and limited by guarantee. Then the limited liability partnerships, which is the new innovation as well, it's a nice innovation that allows partnerships to come together and enjoy the perks of a limited liability, like of a company, without basically having to go through the processes of having directors, board meetings, and all that go into the corporate management of a company. Then the limited partnership is that which you have, which was under the business names in the CAMA 1990, where you just have only a limited partnership. So yeah, the four structures which you have where you can run a business as a structure in Nigeria.
All right, so that's fantastic and very apt. So what's the difference between the limited partnership and an incorporated company? Apart from directors and having board meetings, is there any limitation to registering as a limited partnership compared to being registered as an incorporated company?
Okay, thank you. Being registered as an incorporated company comes with its own perks as well, but you have to take some factors into consideration as to regards the business size. But the major benefit, without lengthening the whole discussion, has to be the fact that a limited company, by the name, the limited liability, is limited by the number of shares the company has and each of the owners of the shares have. So let's say down the line, the company is about to wind up or is going bankrupt. or faces some sort of litigation where monies have to be paid and the business is going to wind up, the liabilities of the shareholders are only limited to the amount of shares in which they own in that company. So let's say the company is worth let's say 10 million naira, for example, and you have your own share of ₦1 million. Your liability cannot exceed the
1 million.
shares that you have. But you see a limited partnership, the liability in the limited partnership does not exist. So if the partnership goes awry, then the partners in the business will have to bear the brunt of all the financial mistakes or liabilities that come with it.
Interesting. So now, since we're talking protection here, is there any form of protection for small businesses under the law? Meaning, are there, for someone who opens a sole proprietorship, for instance, is there
Yes.
any refuge, any form of protection for such people under the law?
Okay, well, to use the term protection might be asking for too much. Each of the business structures have their own perks, so it's a major thought that when you are choosing the particular structure you wish to belong to, you would have studied and looked at what's best for you. So it's just basically weighing out all the advantages. But I know that recently, that's the CAMA 2020 brought in a new proviso in section 22 that provides for, this has to do with companies anyway, right of first offer. Right of first offer when it comes to acquisitions. You know, let's say, for example, the CAMA has insisted that companies include it in the articles of association. So let's say, for example, I had shares in a company and I want to sell my shares. The clause in the article of association makes it mandatory for me to offer my shares to other members or other shareholders of the company before I offer it to a third party or another person outside. So those are some of the ways I feel probably these are new protection clauses of sorts. But there's nothing that stands out a small business that makes it it comes with its own territory and its own risks as well. But protection, well, I would say not too much. But from what I just explained, that deals with acquisitions, then we can look at that too. Then there are also some other minor sections that also cover financial assistance by companies during acquisition of shares, also the share buyback clauses and all that. But basically for a sole proprietorship, I would say not really much. Not really much.
Okay, interesting. As a business owner, what business law are we most likely to break? What's the common laws, common errors that business owners make and they break the law? Can you help us identify so that at least we can shine the light on those?
Okay, thank you. I would go with the famous quotes. There are only two things that are certain in this life: debt and taxes. So I would say the most common or liable business rule to break should be taxes. We have, except for probably Lagos State, Ogun State recently. Well, some other states are also picking up, but in terms of revenue generation, the internal revenue services in those states, they drive tax collection on a very serious scale. So most business owners, I wouldn't make the mistake of generalizing and quoting figures, but I would say majority of business owners, when they set up their business, don't pay tax until there's a serious need for it. Probably they are in trouble with the tax authorities, or they have a particular business where their records of their tax returns are needed. That is when they actually take it into consideration. But we generally know the Nigerian factor, where we have poor administration and poor management in business structures, where people just feel like you make money and you don't even return the money that belongs to the company back to the company. All revenue belongs to the owner. There's nothing left for the company. So
that clear delineation, that differentiation between the business owner and the
yes,
business.
and the
It's
business does not
missing in the
exist.
corporate governance of most businesses.
It does, exactly. Yes.
Mm.
So I would say
Okay.
taxes. Taxes.
Okay. So how does that relate to access to loans? So is there any relationship between if I'm being law abiding and I keep, I pay my taxes and everything, how does it impact maybe things like access to loans or access to grants and the likes?
Okay, well, there are two ways we can get loans actually. So I would want to look at both sides of it, because you said something that that really caught my attention. Being a law-abiding citizen, the government loans and the private sector loans. Well, let's start with the government loans. Actually, um, for the government loans, you need to be law-abiding to a T. Um, part of the requirements are they might need you to submit your tax returns for about 3 years, 5 years, to ensure your company is incorporated, and other records. There are requirements which are being followed before you could get access to these loans. So, and I'll say probably because of given the size of the loans, though we have huge loans with also good tenors for government loans, but um, basically you have to have the paperwork. The paperwork is very, very essential, and you can't have that paperwork without being a law-abiding citizen. Without paying your taxes, you can almost not access any government loan, almost not. But coming down to the private sector, well, wow. Um, I when I was I wrote a project when I was a law student, um, and had to deal with the financial regulation. We had the crisis of back then, the banks, giving writing off bad loans, non-performing loans. Um, I think part of it still even spilled into till the present age. I'm not sure you've been following the First Bank story, where we have loans that are bad loans being written off. So for private sectors, I would say, well, it's basically based on how close you are to somebody who is very powerful. You know, lots of the regulation, sorry to say, in the private sector is not being followed to a T, and it's very sad because it shows you how well we've decided not to follow the rules. Um,
Mm.
it's very difficult for small businesses, very, very difficult to access loans in the private sector. The conditions are stringent, the interest rates are very, very outrageous, and basically most of the time you get rebuffed. But
Okay, so this is a good time to
yeah.
drop this question. So is there any help for government for small businesses when they go broke? So for instance, we hear, especially out of the country, we hear things like, oh, someone, when they use the word bankruptcy,
Hmm.
um so because so you're not liable anymore. Is there anything, any safety net for small business? So it's in case I start this business and it's an error, my idea didn't work, and I'm trying to pivot, I can't pivot. Is there any safety net to catch any business person? Or
Okay,
whatever,
well. Hmm.
if you loan money and you're broke and you can't pay up your debt, you sell your shirt.
I like how that rhymes. Oh well, as regards a sort of bailout, I have to be factual with you. None exists, but that does not mean there's no financial assistance from the government anyway. But a safety net, no. Um, the way we've seen SMEs grow in this country, I think startups generally, like I said, I wouldn't talk about statistics without having a good figure, but I would say majority of startups in this country crash within the first 2 years. And that tells you a lot of the risks that goes into setting up businesses. Um, Generally, there is no sort of bailout or a safety net or a fund which you can fall back on, or a community fund or a hedge fund you have somewhere that you can fall back on. But I know the government has lots of loan programs they run currently. The CBN gives loans, the Bank of Industry gives loans, the Bank of Agriculture gives loans as well. I'm sure Smedan too gives loans, and Nexim Bank, Nigerian Export Import Bank, they give loans to small medium enterprises as well. So if you can't get access to bailout funds, then please let's try and make sure we access these loans, because I've noticed some of the problems young entrepreneurs and small and medium enterprises do have is the challenge of information. The government has set up portals for us to access these loans. It's as easy as just going to the official portal or official websites of some of these loans operating currently, and as well as just logging. Once you have all the necessary requirements, you punch that in and you wait for your loan to be approved, and you get it. And the interest rates are, they're quite better than you have in the private sector. So I think the major challenge is we've not been tapping into those.
Okay, very, very true. And those are some of the things that we intend to expose here, and hopefully one of these days we can get you back here to talk about some of these opportunities, and then even list them out for young
Sorry,
people
please,
to
can you
able
come
to.
again?
Yeah, so we're saying that you are right that there's an information gap between the opportunities that are available out there and what founders and business owners are struggling with. And so most of the time, one of the things that we also intend and would love to do is to connect the dots and then make those information readily available for young people to be able to access. And hopefully we can get you back one of these days again to do more justice, and to double down on access to some of this information, these websites and the likes. So we seem to have a little bit of connectivity issue with our guest. And so while he logs back in, what I would try to do right here is to quickly do a quick summary of what we have discussed so far. So good. Okay, so he's right back and he will be joining us right now. I wanted to go ahead to do a quick summary of what you were doing, but you're back. So can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you,
Good.
please.
All right then. So the next question I actually have for you, as we bring all this conversation to a close, is this: as a new business owner, as a new founder, as a recent founder, is there any tendency for businesses to face litigation, either from the government, meaning for not obeying one of the rules or one of the laws, or from another private entity? What's the culture of litigation like in this part? Hello,
Sorry.
hello. Okay, we seem to be having
Down
some.
again.
Okay, I will take that again if you can hear me now.
Okay, please, could you rerun the question? The network has been terrible. It's just been skips and all.
Okay, no issues. I'm asking, what's the culture of litigation, business to business, in this part? We watch movies and we read about people saying, "Hey, that business was sued by that other business. This person sued that person," but we don't really hear much of that in this part. Is that what it is? What's the culture like, and what's the tendency for a new business in the process of doing its business to get sued or have some litigation against it from your
Okay,
experience?
thank you so much. Thank you. Well, the liability, the chances of being in a litigation battle differ, and has to do majorly with the environment, the business environment, or the particular sector of business the emerging business belongs to. If you are in, say, probably the oil and gas sector, you should know definitely sometime soon you would have to fight a battle in court. If you are in the let's say manufacturing, probably you might have labor laws to deal with. If you're in the construction as well, you also have battles to deal with. Aside from your workers, you also deal with the government. If you're in the creative industry, you have issues on intellectual property theft and contractual breaches. So it has to do basically with the environment you belong to and the business environment you belong to. But I would say I think the new crop of Nigerians are being more aware of their rights, and they are ready to take it up. Though we know litigation it's often a long drawn battle, but
And expensive.
I know the current, yes, it is expensive. But luckily, we also have alternative dispute resolution
Dispute.
mechanisms. Yes, that are not as expensive and not as lengthy as that. If both parties are willing to go into the ADR and agree on terms of settlement. So I would say the percentage of engaging in litigation has to do basically with the business environment and how well a business is also run as well. That's why it's important for businesses to have a sort of legal in-house legal counsel or in-house legal aid that advises businesses on steps it's about to take. That make sure they don't cross the red line and all that.
Beautiful. Wonderful conversation with you so far, but all good things, um, you know, all have to come to a pause once in a while. So please, just one piece of information we'd love you to share before we let you go. It would be good for us to have your contact, and then if you are actually available to to support any small business that's in need of 1 2 questions. We want to know if you're available, and then we'll let you go.
Oh, definitely, I will. I could even do this for free.
Interesting.
It's always my pleasure. I could always do this for free to contribute towards helping the Nigerian economy and youth grow as well. I could do that. I have my contacts on my LinkedIn page. Olatu Bosun Kwajo is my name.
Okay.
I have all my contacts there. Thank
All
you.
right, beautiful. It's a pleasure speaking with you, Mr. Bosun Kwajo, who is a senior legal counsel with the Ondo State Ministry of Justice. It's a pleasure speaking with you and learning from you some of the important things that we need to do to ensure that we are legally safe in Nigeria doing business. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and we look forward to having you sometime soon again.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right then. Yeah, so guys, it's a wrap for today. So we learned a couple of things. I like the limited by partnership stuff. Yes, I see those LLP stuff that um, and most companies out of the country actually use, and it's very important that we study to understand the different level of business structures and registrations that we can take advantage of. So it's a very short one today, and then we will come back to you next week Tuesday for another showcase. We have an interesting guest for you on Tuesday evening around 4 5 p.m. the same time, to discuss a very interesting program, and the uh, person and the body that is coming is actually related to a government related affiliated body. So it will be good for you to stay tuned and keep in touch. Please follow us on our social media handles. 8Get Partners is the handle. Um, please do that, and then we will get across to you, and we will stream live at you again next week, Tuesday evening. Till we meet again, stay blessed. Have a wonderful evening.